Although leopard geckos are a very popular type of gecko in the reptile world, another gecko that I think should be just as popular is the African fat-tailed gecko. Not as many people keep these because they're a little bit harder to find, but they are definitely worth it if you can find one that's for sale. Really the only big difference between the two in their care is that fat-tailed geckos need more humidity than leopard geckos do. This is a normal coloration of a fat tail, and this is an amelanistic, and you might notice that their tail is rather fat and it ends more abruptly than a leopard gecko's. And if you look at a fat-tailed gecko's eyes, you'll see that their eyes are much darker than a leopard gecko's, so that's another difference between the two. And I found that they're very friendly, and they don't get quite as big, so you don't need as large of an enclosure to keep them in, and they're just easy to take care of in general. You can house a pair of fat-tailed geckos in a 10-gallon tank, but I like to give them a 20 long, just so they have enough room to roam around in. On the warm end, I have a hide, which is just a cardboard box, so that I could retrofit it to have an entrance on this side and an entrance on the side that leads to a humidity box. So one of the biggest difference between fat-tailed geckos and leopard geckos is that fat-taileds need a little bit more humidity, and to achieve that, you can give them that humidity box, and then they can go in and out as they please to rehydrate themselves. Now underneath this warm end, there is a heat mat, and right above the heat mat, this is a thermometer that sits above the glass, and it goes up here and it reads what the temperature is. And I keep their warm spot at about 90 degrees, and I have the heat mat hooked up to a rheostat so that I can turn the mat up or down. You can also just use a thermostat, which will do this automatically for you. You just set the temperature and it keeps it right there. On the other end of the tank, I don't have any heat sources, so there's a thermal gradient throughout the enclosure, and then they can be hidden, so have hides all around, but they can be hidden at whatever temperature they want to be at that moment. For their bedding, you can use cypress bedding, you can use some other tropical soils. I would not recommend sand, as this can cause impaction with geckos and any lizard for that matter. And just to keep things simple and easy to clean, I use paper towels. Now I also keep a container of mealworms in here at all times so that if they feel like it, they can just eat away. Or I have crickets that are running around occasionally, and I throw in a lot of dubia roaches too. But I found that they can't really hunt for the dubia roaches very easily. So what I do is I put them in a separate container and I feed them in there. And I'll kick them around, try to grab their attention. Apparently she doesn't want to eat right now though. And just like crickets, you want to dust roaches with calcium powder or a multivitamin powder. And you can gut load them too to make the insect healthier for the gecko to eat. The African fat-tailed gecko lives in Western Africa, and they're one of the only types of geckos that has eyelids. They help protect their eyes from the dusty climate they live in, and most other geckos actually have to lick their eyeballs in order to keep them lubricated. They can live 15 to 20 years, and they are a type of gecko that can drop their tail if they're threatened or attacked, and they will regrow that tail, although it'll be very smooth and it won't look as nice as the original tail did. Since they're a nocturnal type of gecko, they don't need any UVB, and I find it's best to heat their enclosure from the bottom instead of using a basking bulb. After your fat-tailed gecko sheds its skin, make sure you look over all of its toes. Sometimes there will be extra skin on the ends of their toes, and if you don't do anything about this, it can eventually cut off circulation, making them lose those toes. So to fix this, just simply place them in a bath of 80 to 85 degree water, about half an inch deep, just enough to cover their feet, and let them walk around in it for like 10 minutes or so, after which you should be able to carefully remove that extra skin. And there you have it, the African fat-tailed gecko. As long as you're okay with a gecko that you won't see much during the day, since they are nocturnal, but you're looking for something that's unique yet easy to take care of, the fat-tailed is the one for you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.